If I could go back in time to the very first time I ever picked up a camera, there's a few things I would sit myself down and say. These are things I wish I knew before I became a videographer and before I started my business. Now, these aren't just technical tips, they're lessons that actually matter if you want to do something like videography for real. Okay, the very first thing I would say to myself is that gear is not everything. I'm so guilty of doing this. I just think, man, if I just had this, if I just had that, all of a sudden I would become a good videographer if I just bought the right camera, or if I just bought the right lens, or if I just subscribed to the right package. It would make me a better videographer and I would get more clients and get more money and be happier in life. That's just not the case. The reality is most clients, especially in the business world, aren't going to ask you what kind of camera you're shooting on. They want to see what your final product looks like, who you've worked for, what you've done, what kind of video they can expect based on your past work. If you walked up to a random business and just flashed a nice camera in their face, they would just say probably something like, okay, so what? But if you went and showed them that you could make an effective, powerful marketing video for them that has helped other companies in town increase their business, that would actually sell. Now, I even went through different camera manufacturers and lens mounts, trying to figure out what would make me a better videographer, or what would work, or what would get me more clients. And that's when I realized that good gear doesn't just make you a good videographer. What makes you a good videographer is knowing how to use the gear that you have, knowing how to get the maximum value out of your camera, even if it is a couple years older or 5 years old. It's knowing how to balance being technically proficient in your work, but also creatively artistic. So I would sit myself down and say something like, don't worry so much on what kind of camera you have, what kind of lens you have, about buying the next greatest thing and keeping an eye on what's about to be released. Worry about investing in yourself, learning the trade of videography, learning cinema, learning lighting, learning audio, learning framing, all these things that are going to make you better at your craft, not just the gear. Number two, I would sit myself down and say, you're not just going to become a videographer. You're also going to have to become a marketer, a social media person, an editor, a salesperson, a tax person. The skill of getting clients or doing your taxes or managing your finances correctly are just as important as learning how to use your camera, learning how to frame up a shot. You also need to know how to do all these other things so that you can then sell yourself to your clients well. I learned this the hard way. I put off learning about my taxes. Like I said before, I spent so much money on gear when I had no clue how to sell. I didn't prioritize working on my website to get my SEO okay, and I was really inconsistent in how I used social media and how I would post and when I would throw things out there, what kind of content I would put out. I had no plan. So if you want to go into the freelance market of videography, and really this works for most freelance jobs, you have to look at yourself as more than just what that craft is, more than just a camera operator, more than just a photographer, a painter, a chef, more than any of those things. You need to learn how to market yourself well. You need to learn how to pick up the phone and talk to somebody and sell your trade to them. You definitely need to learn how to manage your finances, how to create a budget, how to make sure you're on target to pay your taxes every year, how to get the most deductions possible. So when you're investing in yourself and you're learning how to frame something up nicely or light something properly, don't forget that you also need to invest in some of the other aspects of you as a person and you as a business. The next thing I would tell myself is that perfection can kill your progress. When you're early on and you're getting started, you can almost spend too much time in the edit room, too much time thinking about a caption or hashtags or a cover or a thumbnail or anything like that. And sometimes you just need to create and share for people to see. Sometimes you can over edit. Sometimes you can overthink a video. Sometimes you can over plan a video. For this video, I literally just plugged in my light that I have right here. I threw a tripod up. I have my camera on a tripod and I'm just talking into a microphone. I'm at my desk where I work. I just turned my chair around. I didn't really plan this out at all. But wanting things to be perfect, like over editing a video or taking too long to get your website live or spending a lot of time and money on making a really cool YouTube studio in your house, will stop you from getting content out. It will stop people from learning about who you are and what you do. It will only delay you getting your first client, and you need your first clients to start to get that income so you can start to advertise, start to grow exponentially. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't try hard on every video or make sure that it looks nice or it's edited well, but sometimes done has to be perfect, especially when you're working early on and you just want to get eyeballs on your work. Next, I would tell myself this, that confidence comes from repetition. I remember the first wedding I shot, how nervous I was. I was afraid of missing the first kiss. I had no clue how I was going to edit the video, so I had no idea how I was going to shoot the actual wedding live. I hadn't thought about how it's really hard to recreate live moments at a dynamic event like a wedding, so you can't really afford to miss shots. I wasn't good at capturing audio. I wasn't even proficient with the camera that I brought to use. But now that I've shot over 5 years of weddings don't scare me anymore. I have a basic idea of what the day is going to look like. I know how to talk to brides and grooms. I know how to talk to mothers and mothers-in-laws and fathers-in-laws. I know the basic flow of the wedding. You get used to things is what I'm saying. You start to get an understanding of what people are looking for that specific field. You don't get nervous as much. You don't lose sleep the night before worrying about if you miss a shot. It just becomes another day at the office, just like any other job you've had in life. Anytime you start a new job, there's always that nervous, like, oh boy, like I have to learn how to do this stuff and somebody has to show me how this works and I need to remember how to do it. It's gonna be so embarrassing if I forget. That happens in any job you start, and it'll happen to you when you start your freelance career as well. But as time goes on and you get more settled in and you do more repetitions, you'll become so much more confident. And one little bonus for you, I didn't really plan this, but learn how to change your mind and learn how to humbly admit that you're wrong. A lot of times when we get proven wrong or somebody says something and corrects us, we want to double down and we want to say, no, here's why I'm right. One of the most mature things you can do is take a second, take a breath, look at the situation, and if you are wrong, recognize it and just say something like, that's a really good point. My mind's changed. I've done that a lot in my life, and there's a lot of times where I have failed at doing that and have doubled down and just wanted to prove I was right, and actually you end up making things worse. People really respect someone who is able to admit they were wrong or have their mind changed on something. It just shows that you're not so set in your own ways. It shows that you don't think too highly of yourself. This can happen on the job site. This can happen talking to a client. It can happen just in regular day-to-day life. It's just a great thing to practice and to seek out, to be someone that's humble, that doesn't get offended easily, doesn't double down when they've been shown wrong, but says, you know, you made a great point and you changed my mind. People like that, and that's something I try to develop in my own personal life, and I see the fruit of it. So I encourage you to do that as well. Okay, so to recap, gear is not everything. You're not just a videographer. You have to learn how to do everything else that entails being a business owner. Perfection can kill your progress. Still try hard, but make sure you're posting regularly and getting a lot of content out there. And confidence comes from repetition. The more you do something, the easier it's going to get and the less nervous you'll be before it starts. Also, try to become a humble person who can admit when they're wrong. If you're early on in your journey and you're trying to get started as a videographer, I encourage you to check out my previous video. I'll link it in this video, where I talk about the 5 mistakes that videographers make when starting out. And also in the description of this video, you can sign up for early access and 20% off of my upcoming Foundations of Videography course that covers what I call the cinematic trinity. The goal of the course is to introduce people to videography and give them the foundational and fundamental basics that will set them up for success as a videographer. Again, you can sign up for that in the description, and that gives you 20% off when it comes out. I would love to hear what you think, or maybe about what you wish you knew earlier when you started out as a freelancer in videography. So feel free to put that in the comments, share your wisdom as well, and help other people grow too. That's it for this video. I will see you guys in the next one. If you're trying to build a real business with a camera, listen up. Have you ever looked at somebody's Instagram or YouTube page or their social media or portfolio or whatever, looked at their content and been like, how are they more successful than me? It's so frustrating to me when I see people out there that like genuinely don't know what they're doing with equipment or cameras, but somehow they're getting more business than me, somehow they're doing better, they're making more money. And that's because of one thing that once I realized it totally changed the way that I run my business, I make videos, I reach out to clients, and it's honestly totally changed the course of my business as well. Hey, this is actually the first episode of my IRL series where I'm just more talking casually about some business ideas, videography ideas, not using like any B-roll or anything like that, more just rambling, a little bit less production-y and more just getting thoughts out there in the internet for people to chew on and think about. So thank you for watching. This is the first episode I'm doing of this. Okay, so I know this is like definitely happened to you. It's happened to me all the time. I see people on Instagram, somehow a video that has like millions of views, or this account that has hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of followers, and their videos are like kind of bad or not that good or not technically correct, or their content is boring or something like that. And there's a really simple reason why this happens. Hey, real quick, I wanted to thank you for watching this video. This is the first IRL I've ever made where I'm really just talking about some business ideas, some videography ideas, some of the bigger concepts around running a service-based business like a video production agency. So go ahead and like this video, hit subscribe if you want to see more of this. I also post tutorial videos, creative videos, cinematic stuff, weddings, shorts, long form, all kinds of things here on YouTube, as well as Instagram, TikTok, and X as well. You can get all the links to all my other social medias right in the description of this video. And now back to the video. A lot of times when people buy a camera, we fall into this trap of calling ourselves a videographer or saying I make videos for people, and both of those things are true. You are a videographer, you know, the same thing as a photographer, just with a video camera. You do make videos for people. That is a service-based industry for sure. You're doing that too. But the problem comes when you start to think of yourself in that box. I'm a videographer, I'm a freelancer, I go where people need event coverage, or I film weddings, or I film product videos for small businesses business videos, and that's how I operate. This totally changed my outlook on things when I heard this and I applied it to my business. It totally changed everything for me. I'm not selling a video, I am selling a result, a solution, and feeling. So when you go to a prospective client and you're pitching them for a video project, or maybe they reached out to you and said, hey, can you tell me about what you do? And you just go, well, I make videos, so if you're making bread, I'm gonna make a video about how you make bread. They're gonna be like, okay, I can make a video about how I make bread. Everybody has in their pocket a 4K camera with audio built into it, really high quality stuff that you can use to make videos. So what are you doing or saying to set you apart from the kid who has an iPhone who says, I'll make a video about how you make bread? No, I'm gonna make a video that tells the history of your mill, that goes all the way back to how you started, the process of making bread, that it's gonna be shot in a way that just makes somebody want a fresh, warm sourdough loaf of bread, in the morning steaming. It's gonna help highlight the complexity and the variety of types of bread that there are, why good bread is important, and ultimately it's gonna land on telling the viewer why they should buy bread from you. We have the best equipment, we have the best lighting and audio gear. What I care most about is telling the right story, capturing it in a way that you're happy with and honors you and your work, and will be pleasing to the average viewer, and tell a good story that eventually lands on them saying, I feel like I should buy a loaf of bread from this person. That's a much better way to pitch to a hypothetical bakery than saying, hey, I'd like to make some videos about your bread. So you're not just selling a video, you're selling a solution, you're selling a feeling, you're selling results. You're saying, I will do this in a faster and more professional way than you could to achieve these results in an exponentially faster amount of time than you could have even imagined. Now, sometimes you also have to connect some other dots for prospective clients as well. Why is it important to have this video? Why do you need a social media presence? Why should you be doing long form, short form? Should you even be doing that? Sometimes it's important to be honest with a customer or a prospective client and say, hey, I don't think this is best for you right now. Another way to think about it that's helped me is to put yourself in the shoes of your prospective client's marketer. Say you're going to a small business, say again, let's say you're going to this bakery again, and you're trying to pitch them an About Us video for their website, along with 6 high quality social media reels that highlight the story of the business, the process, and why their bread is better than everyone else's bread in the area. Rather than going and say, hey, if you ever need any videos, let me know, I make videos, I would put myself in the shoes of the marketer that they don't actually have. How are we going to tell our story? How are we going to highlight our product? How are we going to make sure that people come to us first for bread? What kind of people do we want to reach? Where do they congregate? What other competition do we have in the area that we need to consider and look at what they're doing? I would make my entire pitch deck, I would make my entire package catered as if I was the guy who's already on staff at the bakery, and I'm going to be making these videos one way or another. That way, when I go and meet with them, one, I'm super prepared. I know all about the business. I know their competitors. I already know the process of bread making and selling it, so I'm informed on their product, which actually goes a long way. But then two, my mindset is already in line with theirs. I'm part of the team. I want to see you guys do better, because if they do better, honestly, they'll have more money to pay me to make more videos for them. So I genuinely do want that business to do better, especially if they're going to be hiring me. So thinking of yourself as a marketer, as a business owner, not just a videographer, will go a long way. Thinking of yourself as your prospective client's marketer, doing all that legwork before the pitch, will go a long way. And lastly, one thing that I will sometimes do to critique my own work or my own pitch, put yourself in your prospective client's shoes and ask yourself, is this pitch worth it? If I had a small business and I had someone sitting across the table from me offering to do X, Y, and Z for this much money, is that worth it? Do I find the value in it? Am I convinced that the value is there? Have I been convinced of the importance of doing this? And has it been explained to me why it costs this amount of dollars? These are things that I've applied to my own business, my own life, how I pitch to clients that I've found success with. I've booked more clients when I've done this versus when I haven't. So I hope some of this helped you. Certainly helped me, and that's all I'm trying to do with this IRL series, is just get as much information out onto the internet to help videographers and marketers grow their businesses and do better. So thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for the next one. I post all kinds of videos here on my YouTube channel, and I will see you in the next video. If you're going into videography and you want to skip the rookie mistakes that cost you jobs, you're in the right place. In this video, I'll be breaking down the top 5 mistakes that beginner videographers make when just starting out with their business or their craft. My name's Pete Magazoo. I'm a videographer and a wedding filmmaker, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you need to do to become a professional videographer faster than 90% of other people. So the first mistake that a lot of new videographers make is not using lighting properly, or not using tools at their disposal to control lighting as best as they can. For instance, even in this video, I've got a light right there that's just putting a bunch of light on the side of my face so that it looks nicer. Now there's a lot of things to learn, like ratio of your subject to the background, different positions and names for lighting, and different ways to measure your lighting, but we're not going to get into that in this video. The point is, most people when they start out in videography, they don't even think about lighting. They just think, I need to get a camera, I need to get a lens, I need to start filming things and posting my stuff online, which is all great, but if you want to set yourself apart as a beginner, start learning about lighting. Here's a really great tip that helped me start to learn about lighting. When I watch shows or movies that I love, I'll pause the frame and look at the scene and just start to observe, where's the light coming from? What are they trying to do with the light? How is the subject lit? And there are two things that you can do that'll really help you study and learn faster when it comes to doing this. One is to make observations about what you see in that frame. Now, an observation could be as simple as there's light coming through the window, or the phone screen is lighting the person's face. And the second is to make implications. Implications can be a little bit more subjective, and now you're starting to determine what were they trying to communicate in the way that they lit this. For example, there's a scene in one of my favorite TV shows, Breaking Bad, where Walter White, the main character in the story, is standing at the top of the stairs of a basement. Now, I'm not going to spoil what's about to happen. He's going down to the basement to do something pretty evil. So some observations are there's no light in front of him. An observation would be that there's light pointing at the concrete wall coming from the basement below him. Another observation would be that it looks like there's a ceiling light or something on behind his head. Observations are great just to start to see what whoever lit the scene was thinking. Now, this is a really cool silhouette shot, and like I said, something bad is about to happen in this show during this frame, and they're showing this mysterious, dark, he's silhouetted. They obviously chose not to light him on the front of him, and they're showing this darker side of him. So an implication would be, because of the observations we made, how they decided to light the scene, I'm going to imply that something bad is about to happen. They're not showing his face. Even his stance, the way the door opens super slow in the scene, shows that he is about to do something really serious and dark. That's just one way to simply start to learn about lighting. So next time you're watching a TV show or you're hanging out watching Netflix, pause the show in the middle of a scene that you like and start to make some observations and implications. The more you do that, the faster you'll learn, and the faster you'll set yourself apart from other beginners. Number two is overcomplicating gear. Now, everybody likes buying gear. I love buying gear. I buy too much gear, but the best camera is the one that you can use fast and confidently. You don't need to get the latest piece of gear to start in videography. I would honestly recommend looking into starter cameras like the Blackmagic Pocket 4K or the Sony FX30, getting really familiar with them. Again, learning lighting, learning exposure, learning all these things. And then once you're established, then you go buy the camera of your dreams, or the camera that you really need to make your business thrive. But a point to that, a camera will not make your business successful, nor will a good lens, nor will all the gear in the world. The best thing you can invest in early on is knowledge. Before you start to spend money on gear, before you start to rack up a gigantic Amazon cart, invest in yourself, learn some basics, and you will be set up for success. Okay, number three, I've said this before, but a big mistake that beginners make and some pros make is not planning for audio capture. A lot of people will start filming, they'll get a camera, they'll get a lens, they'll get even a light, all these things, and they won't think about audio. They just think, oh, the camera has audio built in, so I don't need to worry about that, or I'll figure that out way later. That's a later thing. No, people will watch bad video. You could film something on an old camera or an iPhone and people will watch it, but people don't like to listen to bad audio. Here's an example. I'm now not using this microphone that I'm just kind of holding in front of my face. I'm using the onboard FX3 built-in microphone, and you can hear it's totally different. You can hear the room reflections. My voice isn't as strong or powerful. Investing in something even like this little DJI Mic 2, which I'm going to put in the link below, will make you sound so much more professional. These are super versatile. I use 4 of them when I shoot weddings. I can't say it enough. Investing in audio will make you a better videographer, and it's really not hard to do. Audio, sure, there's some quirks, just like lighting. You need to kind of learn a few things, learn how to capture audio, learn what things like gain is, learn how to use a compressor, learn some basics about equalization, but you don't have to become a studio expert to start to capture good audio. So I highly recommend even just buying one of these or other similar products on the market. Again, the link is in the description below for this. Also, mini tip for this, you never really want to go with just one audio source, especially if it's a paid job. You should always have backup audio. Whether it be a shotgun mic on a boom or a mic on your camera, you always want two ways to capture audio. That way, if something like this fails, or I drop this in the ocean, or the camera wasn't rolling audio, I always have a backup to go with. Mistake 4 is one that really takes a long time for people to get good at naturally unless you're really thinking about it constantly. And the mistake is to have a lack of story or emotion in what you're filming. You could be filming anything in the world. It could be any job, any project, a wedding, a personal video, whatever. People love stories. I'm reading this book right now called Stories That Stick. I'll put it in the link below. And it's really opening my eyes to how even businesses and marketing companies use stories to sell their products better than just listing off information, better than just saying, here's all the features that my new product has. It's so much more effective to tell a story of how your product impacted someone's life than to just say, look how amazing my product is. So when you're shooting something, always think about emotion. If you're interviewing someone, ask them how it feels. And this is a mini tip for interviewing people. Ask them to describe what they were feeling in the moment. So if you were interviewing someone about hitting a home run in a baseball game, I personally would say, okay, I'm you. I'm at bat. I hit the ball. I see the ball going over the fence. Describe to me what I'm feeling. Tell me what that's like. Tell me physically what you feel. Tell me emotionally what you feel. Where did you look? What did you feel when you were running the bases? And get that person to start talking about the emotion of it. You know, if they weren't storytelling, it might sound just like, I hit a home run, I ran around the bases, and we won the game. Great, usable, not the best though. Now, if you ask them a couple more leading questions to get more information about the emotions of that, it might sound something more like, my palms were sweaty walking out, and I knew the whole team was counting on me to do something. You know, we really needed to win this game, and this was our only hope. And you know, the pitch came in and it was the pitch that I was looking for, and I really swung just hoping to make contact, and the next thing I knew, I heard the crack of the bat. I looked up, I saw the angle of the ball, and I knew immediately it was a home run. I kind of lost all sense of awareness, almost like I couldn't hear anything anymore. It was just this roar of the crowd and my teammates, and it was all a blur running around the bases. And by the time I got to third and I was running home, my whole team was there ready to congratulate me. And it was like it was in slow motion, but in normal speed. And I'd never felt anything like that. You can see how just asking some leading questions or trying to draw the emotion can make an interview question about a hypothetical home run in baseball so much more interesting, or such a better story to tell. Okay, mistake number 5 is one everybody likes to hear, and that's not charging enough early. I get it, and I've even told people sometimes you have to do free work, especially if you're literally just starting out and you need content to start to promote yourself or start to post on Instagram. Sure, do some free work. I also love to help out friends and family and do free projects for them all the time, but giving away your services to a client who might be ready and willing to pay you doesn't really make much sense. Even if you're only charging a couple $100 for an interview, or you're going into town and finding small businesses to make an About Us video for their website, still charge them something and start to get a little bit of money. Even $100 is enough to start to advertise for yourself on Instagram. So if you can go out and find one person who needs one specific video and is willing to pay you $100, you can take that 100, advertise for yourself to other businesses in the area, and start to multiply that exponentially. So don't be afraid to pick a price, even if it's a little bit lower, and stick to it. Be confident, learn a little bit about sales, learn a little bit about how to pitch yourself to people, and practice. I still don't get every sales call right. Last week, I botched a sale call while I was on vacation. I got off the phone and I went to my wife and I just said, that did not go well. I just wasn't talking right. I just wasn't answering their needs perfectly. It's all a journey, but if you start learning how to do these things when you're just starting your business, it's gonna grow with you just as your business grows. Getting good at sales, learning how to charge money, and knowing what the value of your product is gonna go a really long way, especially as a beginner. There are so many other mistakes that beginners make, and there's mistakes that I make as well. But these are 5 things that if you just commit to these and get good at them and try to avoid making those mistakes, you are going to set yourself apart from 90%, probably more like 98 or 99% of beginner videographers. YouTube University is a great place to learn how to do all these things. I did not go to college for film. I've just always been interested in cameras. I took a couple classes in high school. I've learned everything I know about this from trial and error and YouTube. So go on YouTube. You can subscribe to my channel where I give tips and tricks like this. So if this video helped you at all, please like it just to show me that. Consider subscribing if you want more videos like this. Also, I'll be dropping a Foundations of Videography course in the next couple months on my website. There's a link in the description if you want to get on the early access list and get 20% off of that. That's in the description for you to follow through as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. You might be setting yourself up for failure when you're shooting weddings if you're not thinking about the shots you're getting, or if you're not going in with some sort of shot list. Now, don't get me wrong, weddings are super dynamic. They're very fluid events where you often can't film the same thing twice because it's just not how the day works. So it might be a little impractical to go in with a whole list of the exact shots you want to get. But what I've learned over the last 5 years of shooting weddings is that if I don't have an idea of the kind of shots I want to get, I'm really setting myself up again for failure. So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 shots that I get at almost every single wedding that I shoot. These are shots I've come up with myself or copied from other people over time and have turned into my own variation or my own ideas. I invite you to copy them, steal them, turn them into your own as well. They've just worked really well for me and I want to share them with you. So here's the first shot that I get at almost every wedding. It's a basic shot of the bride and groom holding hands back to back. Now this is really easy to do during a time like the first look. After they get through their first look and you're doing a couple extra shots and then the photos doing a couple extra photos, just have your bride and groom turn back to back and hold hands and get a static shot for 5 to 10 seconds. This is a great shot to use for a title sequence, and it's a really creative shot that conveys love and closeness between the couple without having to show them like kissing or their first kiss or running and frolicking through the woods. Just holding hands and a shot that focuses on that grip, I think tells a good story. Okay, the second shot is one I just started doing recently. I have another reel about it. What you're going to do is during your bridal party session, you're going to have the bride stare right into your camera, right into the lens, just like this, with a serious face. She's not going to smile, no eyebrows up, think Vogue, just right into the lens. And in the background, you're going to stage the bridal party in 2 groups to her left and right. And they're going to be talking, laughing, having fun, checking out each other's flowers. Maybe one is like, putting her flowers in another girl's face playfully, checking out each other's dresses, twirling, just, having a great time behind the bride while she's having this really Vogue expression into the camera. Do the same thing with the guys. The guys are talking, palling around, but the groom is stood in front of them, staring right into the camera with a serious look as well. Again, this is great for a trailer or an opening sequence that introduces the bridal party, bride, groom, etc. It's a shot I do all the time now. I love it. People seem to love it, so I encourage you to try it out as well. The third shot's really simple. It's called a drive-by. Again, when you're filming your bridal party, you have them in a straight line, the bride and groom in the middle, and you start at the left side and you're going to end at the right side. And you really have to coach the bridal party into this one. Basically, if they're near the outside of the line, they're going to be looking right into the camera lens, all hyped up, cheering right into the camera like they're super excited, like they're at their favorite sports game. If they're in the middle, right around the bride and groom, they're going to be pointing at the bride and groom, holding their hands up behind them, getting super excited, and the bride and groom are kissing. You're going to run from left to right, focusing on the people. When you get near the bride and groom, I'll usually kind of pan and try to focus on them for a little bit longer and then go back to the bridal party and end at the right side of the line. Sometimes I have to do it a couple times. I shoot it handheld. I like the handheld feel of it with the shakiness. Sometimes I'll stabilize it, but it's a great shot to add to your repertoire. Shot number 4 isn't exactly a specific shot. It's more of an idea that I keep in the back of my head as I'm shooting weddings, and that is to think about interesting perspectives, different ways you can capture and tell and show what's going on. There are so many different options you can do for this, and you kind of have to play to the venue, play to where you're at and what you have available at your disposal. But it's something to just keep in the back of your mind that I took from Vince Gilligan. He's the director and writer of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, 2 shows that I love. They're on Netflix, both because they're very well written, the acting is very good, but the cinematography in these shows is really inspiring to me. They really focus on showing and not just telling. They have very well thought out static shots that are able to communicate a lot without a ton of camera movement and without a lot of action going on in the frame. So for shot number 4, again, think about telling the same story from different perspectives. This is something you can practice really easily at home with an inanimate object or a pet or a friend or a spouse or anybody. There are a ton of different ways you can convey something, whatever that action is. And when I'm shooting a wedding, I don't want to be so locked into what I'm shooting that I forget to think about perspective, that I forget to think about how can I tell this differently? How can I show this better? How can I convey whatever enduring value is being communicated in this frame and in this entire video in a unique way to myself? Okay, number 5 is one that I definitely do at every wedding. It's a trucking shot, so I'm moving left to right with my subject at the front of the ceremony. Again, I'm moving left to right, and I'm shooting on a Sony 24-70 most of the time at a wedding. That's what I have on my camera right now. So I zoom all the way into 70 millimeters, and I focus on my subject, the bride and groom, up at the front of the ceremony, and I use the crowd's heads as a foreground, an out of focus foreground. And as you move left to right, it creates a really cool effect, that trucking effect. Again, this is a great shot to do. I can fill time with it. It makes a small crowd feel bigger. It, again, keeps the focus on the bride and groom, but gets some of the ceremony details in focus as well. Again, I do this shot at almost every wedding these days. And one bonus shot, I've been doing this lately. When the bride and groom kiss, instead of just standing there filming a standard shot and that I'll then later, crop in or add some movement in post, I recently did a video on manual focus and autofocus. You can go check that out on my page. Right before they kiss, I will switch to manual focus, blur my image, and then as they're kissing, I will rack focus to bring them into focus. This is something you have to practice because, again, if you miss this, if you don't nail the focus, you miss the first kiss. Now, I always have a second, sometimes a third camera running, so I'll still have the first kiss. But in the instance that you do miss the first kiss, there's nothing wrong with going to your bride and groom during the portrait session and saying, hey, I didn't get the shot I wanted for the first kiss. Do you guys mind if we recreate it real quick? Then later in post, you work that in however you need to, and no harm done. And honestly, it's better to be upfront and tell them, hey, I missed the shot. Can we do this again really quick? 99% of the time, the bride and groom, they want that shot. So they're going to say, absolutely, let's do that really fast. And it's only going to take 30 seconds, 60 seconds to get that shot again. So I don't personally worry too much about missing it, but that's also because I practice this shot a ton. You can practice it at home, again, on inanimate objects, pets, spouses, anything really. Just practice blurring your image and then racking something into focus. I always use some kind of focus peaking when I do this shot, whether it's in body or on my monitor, just so I know that my focus is landing in the right spot. And because a lot of times right before the first kiss, you're kind of sitting right in the middle of the aisle waiting for it, you can practice it a couple of times during that dead time. You can make sure, okay, I know I'm here, I know my subject's there, let's practice just whatever that motion is, however long the focus throw is on your lens to get to that spot. You can run it a couple times while you're waiting for them to announce the first kiss so that you have a couple reps in when it's time to actually get the shot. By the way, all this B-roll again is from the same wedding I just shot last weekend in Venice, Florida, and I'm using my wedding cinema LUT. It's a S-Log3 to Rec 709 LUT that is really balanced and prioritizes skin tones. It's on my website. It's also in the link in the description as well. It's like $9. If you like how the footage looked, you can go pick that up today. But other than that, that's 6 shots that I do at basically every wedding that I shoot. Feel free to take these and run with them, make them your own, tell people that you came up with them yourself. Doesn't really bother me. I think these are amazing shots that are going to make everybody's wedding videos better. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to me, please, to support me. It's free and it helps me a lot, and I will see you in the next video. Should I use autofocus or should I use manual focus? Which one's better? Is there a time when one is better than the other? In this video, we're going to be talking about when to use autofocus and when to use manual focus and which one's better. By the way, if you can't tell, I'm currently moving, which is why there's a bunch of junk behind me and why I'm sitting on my floor. If you spend time with other videographers, a lot of times the debate between auto and manual focus will come up. Lots of people will say autofocus is the best thing since sliced bread, and some other people might say manual focus is the only way to go if you're a professional. And this might come as a surprise to you, but in my 5 years of owning a video business and my 15 years of shooting videos, I have found scenarios where I desperately needed autofocus and scenarios where I really preferred manual focus. So autofocus is when your camera decides what to focus on and then communicates with your lens electronically to set the focus so that that point or that object or that thing, whatever you've decided to set your focal point on or decided to track, is in focus. For someone like me, I shoot a lot of weddings, or if you're doing a lot of run and gun style shoots, events, or things where you can't do a second take, autofocus is a great option. For instance, when the bride is walking down the aisle at her wedding, I'm not going to stop and say, hey, I missed focus. We need to shoot this again. You know, you've got one chance to get that shot. I've used manual focus in those moments before, specifically times where I have a certain shot in mind or go from blur to in focus as the bride is coming into frame. But 80 to 90% of the time on those important shots at a wedding, I'm going to use autofocus because I can just tap on the bride's face on my little camera screen and it will track her the whole way towards me, keep her in focus, and I don't even really have to think about it. I can just focus on my framing and my stability. I've even used used autofocus in studio settings just to set the focus, and then I hit the little manual switch on the lens to switch it into manual so I know it won't get messed up or the autofocus won't freak out and try to focus on something else in the moment. And that does raise a good point. Sometimes autofocus doesn't really work right. Now it's 2025 and most of the time autofocus has no problem. I've rarely had an issue with it with the Sony FX3 and the Sony FX30. Maybe sometimes in low light conditions it'll freak out and just kind of go between its maximum and minimum distances. But for the most part, in this day and age, autofocus is really dialed in and is a really solid tool that videographers, camera operators can use. Now, manual focus is really, in my opinion, where you can get more artistic, more selective, and it's less restrictive. A lot of times when I'm filming in autofocus, I have my camera set so that there's a little box in the middle of my display screen that the camera will focus on whatever in that box. Now I can move that box around with a little joystick so I can say, hey, I want to focus, up here, or I'm going to focus on this object in the foreground, and then I can rack it to the background. So there are options to work with autofocus and still get creative shots, but sometimes when I'm using autofocus, I won't do certain shots because I know that my focal point is by default in the middle of my screen. Whereas in manual focus, I can just say, I want to focus on this object in the foreground. I'm going to pull my focus and then I can, rack from there or keep that in focus for the shot. Or in other words, autofocus is really easy and does 75% of the work really well, but that last 25% can be kind of restrictive to your creativity. So you have to make creative decisions on when you're going to use something like autofocus versus manual focus. If you're on set doing a paid gig, shooting an interview, or in studio, 99% of the time you're going to use manual focus. Although, like I said, sometimes I'll use autofocus to just make sure my focus is perfectly set, and then I'll switch to manual so that it doesn't go nuts and focus on something else. In those instances, hopefully you have a camera operator or someone who can pull focus for you, so you don't really have to even worry about that. And if you don't, or if you do, there are tools that you can use to make pulling focus manually a lot easier, especially when you're using a cinema lens. They tend to have longer focus throws than something like this that I'm shooting on, the Sony 24-70. You can also use powered focus pullers, even wireless focus pullers. That's what I use most, the little Tilta focus pulling kit. It comes with a little motor and a little handheld dial that you can use to pull focus wirelessly and remotely. And using those kind of tools can make it a lot easier and make your focus pulling a lot smoother. But again, if you're shooting something like a wedding, you're not going to be pulling focus the entire day. And if you are and you have one of those attachments on your rig, that just makes your rig that much bigger. And again, for a wedding, I'm trying to think compact. I'm trying to think I'm shooting for 8 to 10 hours. I need everything I need in this location. Any more gear on my rig is going to add more weight. For an 8 to 10 hour day, that's a lot. That doesn't mean don't do it. That doesn't mean don't try it. This is all just stuff that I've kind of learned and my habits after running my business for 5 years and shooting videos for about 15 years. So in summary, as a videographer or camera operator, there are going to be times where autofocus is incredibly helpful to you. If you're shooting weddings, I highly recommend getting a good, fast autofocus lens. If you're strictly doing studio work, autofocus lenses probably aren't at the top of your list. There are probably other things you should buy before experimenting with autofocus in studio. But the important thing is to understand that it's not really a rule that you need to only use autofocus. A lot of times with this lens I'm using now, I'll switch it into manual and just manually with my hand change the focus for shots. I do that at weddings sometimes. I do that for jobs in studio as well. These are just some musings on autofocus and manual focus, something that several people have asked me about on Instagram, and I figured I'd make a video about this. So if you got any help from this, or if you enjoyed the video, please hit like, please subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps grow my channel and encourages me to make more videos. I'll see you in the next video. Let's say hypothetically I lost my entire wedding videography business. Here's exactly what I would do in 2025 to get clients, bookings, and minimal debt. And at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I would do to get my very first client, so stay tuned for that. So I know everybody's temptation is going to always be to go out and get some kind of big rig. You need a nice camera, you need it rigged out in order to look like a legit videographer, but that's just not the case. If I had no money, no business, and no clients, I would go as bare bones as possible. So rather than spending a bunch of money on kitting out a camera really nice, which is probably going to double or triple the cost of video equipment up front, personally what I would do is do whatever I can to get the money to buy a Sony FX3, whether that is using a credit card or selling some things or buying one used. If I'm going to shell out anywhere, it's going to be on the camera body and the lens. And personally, I've used Blackmagic cameras. I've used the Sony FX30. I have nothing against them. I have an FX30 in my kit, but I know from firsthand experience that having that 12,800 second base ISO on the FX3 is so helpful at weddings when they turn the lights down for people to dance, or if you're in a bridal suite or a groom suite where it's like super dark and there aren't a lot of windows. Having that extra base ISO goes a long way, and it's worth the extra money to get the FX3 over the 30 if that's all you're going to be running with. As for lens, I would probably buy something like the Sigma 24-70. It's a great lens and it's about half the price of the Sony 24-70, and the drop-off isn't that bad. I used that lens for 2 years while I first got my business running, and a lot of weddings that are on my website or on my YouTube channel are all shot on the Sigma 24-70. I only recently got the Sony 24-70 in August of 2024 after I damaged my Sigma in Zimbabwe. For memory, I would buy just a 256 gigabyte V90 SD card. That's going to be enough to record 4K 60 at the higher settings on the camera with 422 10-bit color. It is going to be a little bit limiting on how long you can film, so if you can afford 2 of them, that's great. But again, if I was just trying to rebuild my business from scratch, I would be focused on having exactly what I need to shoot this next wedding. For audio, I would buy the DJI Mic 2 kit. It's very inexpensive and gives you basically everything you need to capture the ceremony audio, capture speeches audio. I'm actually recording on it right now. It's this little microphone unit, and it comes with 2 of them, a little carrying case and a wireless receiver as well. Super affordable and super beneficial. It's really the only audio equipment that I use at weddings nowadays. Lastly, I would download DaVinci Resolve from Blackmagic to edit my wedding video on. DaVinci is free until you really want to access some of the higher end features that you really don't even need to edit a wedding video. And even if you did want to have the full version, which I use personally, it's only a couple $100 and it's a one-time fee. They don't do a subscription for it. Another thing that I would do immediately is get some sort of website up. It's really, really easy in 2025 to go on Wix or Squarespace. I personally use Squarespace, and to get a website up and functional in probably like a day, where you can take bookings, you can sell things if you need to, you can tell people a little bit about yourself and showcase some of your footage. So now that my kit is all built out, I've got a bare bones Sony FX3 with a lens, audio, video editor, and storage inside the camera. The last thing I would need is a wedding client. And if I had no social media footprint, no previous work to show people or anything like that, here's exactly what I would do. First, I would reach out to local friends of mine who are dating, engaged, or already married and offer to shoot some content for them. I would say, hey, we're gonna go to the park, dress up nice. I'm gonna shoot a little couples portrait session for you. I'm gonna do that for free. You can have all the videos, you can have my final videos of it. And in exchange, I'd like to use those videos to advertise my wedding business. Is that acceptable? 99% of the time, people are gonna say yes, because they're getting a free little couples portrait shoot. Once I have that footage, I would package that into a couple different reels and start posting them on Instagram. I'd post stories about them. I'd post behind the scenes of it. If you've seen my Instagram page, you know I record behind the scenes all the time. So do everything you can to take that one little content shoot and stretch it as far as you can without being too repetitive. Once I have that content made and posted and shared, I would go around and just start searching for newly engaged couples on Instagram and direct message them. So I would look up the hashtag engaged and see which ones were really recent, like them, follow the person, and then send them a message. Hey, I saw you just got engaged. If you need a wedding videographer, I'd love to be considered for it. Some of my work is on my page. I would do that like 100 to 200 times until somebody said yes. Once you got that wedding, and you might have to do that wedding for free. You might have to do that wedding for only a couple $100 because, again, you don't have the portfolio to show people. You don't have everything that you'd really need. This is a bare bones, I need to get my business off the ground and make a little bit of money plan. So really the idea to start getting clients is get a little bit of content on your page going. You can ask your friends who are dating, married, engaged, whatever, to do a little free shoot for them to generate some content. Reach out to people directly on Instagram. Tell them that you're a new videographer and you'd be willing to shoot their wedding for free or for a low fee. And then continually use the footage that you take at weddings, behind the scenes that you take at weddings, and other content shoots to promote your Instagram page, promote your TikTok page, your YouTube page, wherever you're advertising yourself. So that's really all you would need. You've got a camera, lens, audio, storage, video editor, website, and now you've got some clients on Instagram All you do from there is scale, reach out to more people, maybe you start advertising. But that's exactly what I would do if I woke up tomorrow, I had nothing to my name and I had no business. I would buy that equipment, I would use that strategy to get my first client, and then use that footage as I go to exponentially increase my reach and my footprint on social media. If this video was helpful to you, I really appreciate you supporting it by hitting the like button or subscribing. It really doesn't cost you anything and it helps my profile grow immensely, so I appreciate it. If you're filming something and it still looks amateur, chances are it's your camera settings that are holding you back. Now, this video is going to teach you exactly what I use for camera settings and the idea and concepts behind camera settings. So it's definitely a beginner level video who's looking to step more into the pro world of videography or video production. But if you already know some of these things, it's always great to watch and just refresh your memory on some of these camera settings. Maybe you'll learn something you didn't as well. So we're going to talk about things like frame rate, shutter speed, ISO, and aperture today in this video. Plus, I also have a bonus at the end, a tool that I bring with me to every single wedding that I shoot, any job that I'm on, especially if I'm outside. So we'll see that at the end as well. Okay, so first is the frame rate. And to put it really simply, frame rate is how many pictures your camera is taking in a 1 second period of time. So 24 frames per second means that in 1 second of footage, there are going to be 24 individual pictures being taken by your camera. 30 frames per second means there's 30 pictures. 60 means 60, 120 obviously means there's 120 photos in 1 second of time. So the higher your frame rate, the more photos, or in other words, the more data is going to be in each second of footage. Typically 24 frames per second kind of matches the human eye and is really pleasing in cinematography, in film, in movies, and things of that nature. 30 frames per second is typically used on TV or for broadcast. 60 and above is going to be when you want to do things like slow motion, so for weddings or sports. Sports are even going to go up into 120, 240, or even higher sometimes. And here's something really important to know. The reason why you would film at a higher frame rate to get slow motion is because you want as much data, as many pictures, as many frames in that second as possible. The more frames you have, the more you can slow that clip down because there's so much extra data that that clip has, which is going to allow you to have smooth slow motion. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about shutter speed, but just know higher frame rate's good for slow motion, 60 and above if you want to do something in slow motion. There are some complex things about getting slow motion where you put like a 60 frames per second clip in a 24 frames per second timeline, which allows you to slow that clip down to 40% of its original speed for smooth slow motion, but that's another video, another time. So that's frame rate. Again, 24 frames per second is cinema, 30 is broadcast or TV, 60 and above is for sports, weddings, or anything you want to do slow motion for. Next up, we're going to talk about shutter speed. Now, shutter speed is really interesting because it pairs with your FPS, your frames per second. Shutter speed is typically shown on your camera as a fraction of a second or an angle. For the sake of this video, we're just going to keep things simple and talk about the fraction of second shutter speed. So if you look at your camera, you might see something like 1/30 or 1/60 or 1/4000 or something like that. And that is the readout of your shutter speed. Say that your shutter speed is 1/60. That's saying for every second of footage, your shutter is going to open and close 60 times. Now, to put things simply, the shutter is like when you take a picture and it goes, that is the shutter opening and then closing. So in video, remember when we were talking about frames per second, a 60 frames per second clip means there are 60 pictures being taken in 1 second that then, get all put together into a nice video clip. And when you hit play, those pictures look like video. Your shutter speed is telling your camera how long to allow light in for each one of those individual pictures. So there's a lot of stuff going on in a really short amount of time. A really easy way to get an idea for this is to take out your camera, and I encourage you to do this now or after this video. Take out your camera, set your shutter speed to something like 1/10. That's a really slow shutter, and film something. And what you'll see is this really hazy, blurred, dreamlike look. Next, go and film something at a really high shutter speed, like 1/2000, 1/3000, or crank it as high as you can. And two things you'll notice is, one, the movement of your clip gets really kind of highly detailed, almost like uncomfortably detailed. Second, you'll see as you turn that shutter speed up, your image is getting darker because, again, you're taking pictures faster. The higher your shutter speed, the shorter amount of time that the sensor is going to be exposed to light, which means less light is getting into your camera. A really interesting side note about turning your shutter speed up, the movie Saving Private Ryan actually did this in the opening scene, the very famous opening scene of the Normandy landings in 1944. They turned the shutter speeds up on their cameras because it creates this jarring, uncomfortable effect where, things aren't moving exactly how they should, or things almost seem like surreal, but not in a dreamlike way, like a slow shutter speed, almost in like a tense way with a higher shutter speed. So they actually turned turned their shutter speeds up for the D-Day landings to create this really tense, uncomfortable feeling while all these men are storming the beaches of Normandy. So to summarize, I know that's a lot of information. A slower shutter speed is going to let more light into your camera, but it's going to look choppier as you get too slow. A higher shutter speed is going to restrict light getting into your camera, but it's going to start to become unnatural as you get to a higher shutter speed. But this is the really, really important thing about shutter speeds, and if you get anything out of this video, you need to know this. When filming anything, the basic rule of thumb for shutter speed, I know a lot of stuff that we just talked about could have been really confusing. It's confusing to me. The rule of thumb that you should know for your shutter speed is to just multiply your frame rate by 2 and set your shutter as close to that as possible. So if you're filming in 30 frames per second, multiply by 2, that's 60. Set your shutter speed to 160. If you're filming in 60 frames per second, set it to 120. The FX3 actually can't do 120, so I do 125. This is going to create the most natural and the most pleasing look to the eye in terms of motion blur and how each one of those little photos in that 1 second of time comes out. Also, if you're planning on doing slow motion, you need a faster shutter speed because we're going to be looking at some of those photos that you normally wouldn't see when we stretch that clip out. Again, I know some of that can be kind of confusing, especially as a beginner when you're just trying to learn settings. So the important thing to remember is multiply your frame rate by 2 and set your shutter to it. And don't leave that if you don't have to. That will work for slow motion, that will work for normal speed stuff. I don't encourage people to use shutter speed as a way to control the brightness or the exposure of their image. Just leave that at 2 times your frame rate, lock it even. I have it locked on my Sony FX3 so I don't accidentally bump it or change it. Just leave it alone. Okay, the third setting, one that I harp on probably the most on Instagram, is the ISO setting of your camera. Now this is a digital setting on your camera that is going to augment the light coming into the sensor to brighten or darken your image. A lot of people go to this first when adjusting exposure, and really they should be going to this last or second to last. Shutter speed shouldn't really be touched for exposure either. And this is the important thing. Every camera has a base ISO. That is the setting on which the manufacturers of the camera said, hey, this setting of ISO is where there's going to be no digital noise. Now remember, this is a digital process. You're actually technically increasing the voltage to the sensor in some way that is going to make the image brighter, but because it's digital, it's not actually adding light to the frame. And the more you push that, the less clear your image is going to get. You've probably experienced this. You film something and you're just like, whoa, this just looks really, really bad. Why does this look so bad? And it's probably because you went to your ISO and cranked it way up to try to brighten up your image. You're really doing the same thing as when you take out your iPhone, take a picture, and you go to edit mode and you just say, I want this to be brighter, and you turn the slider all the way up. You're digitally making your image brighter and it just doesn't look good. So for ISO, you really, really, really want to keep your camera at base ISO if possible. I'm filming on the Sony FX3 right now. The base ISO of the FX3 is 800 and 12,800. It's a dual base ISO camera, meaning I have 2 options. I have a lower ISO setting at 800. So if I'm outdoors, bright, I'm in a big studio with a lot of lights, I'm going to set it to 800. Or if it's really dark, or if I'm filming in like a reception hall for a wedding, which happens a lot, I'm going to switch that ISO up to 12,800. The farther up you go from your base ISO, you're slowly going to start to add noise to your image. Now you can get away with a couple stops up. So if you're at 800 and you're just like, man, I need a little bit more light, and you go up to 1600, that's 1 stop above 800. Not a big deal. You're really not going to introduce that much noise. People won't notice, you probably won't notice, and you'll probably be fine. But if you want to see a really, really great example of this, on the FX3, go to 12,800 and go backwards 1 stop. Go 1 stop back before you get to that second base ISO, and you can visually see, even on the little tiny screen on the camera, you can visually see all this noise, all this grain just pop into your image because you're no longer at one of the recommended settings for the camera. You're now telling the camera, hey, crank the voltage to the sensor, make the image brighter, and it just looks really, really bad. So again, if you take anything from this section, go on Google, type in your camera's name and body, Sony FX3 base ISO, and go look and it'll tell you right away, here's the base ISO of your camera. An important note about that though, even on the FX3, if you're filming in S Cinetone, your base ISO is actually going to be different. I don't know off the top of my head what it is. I'll put it right here. The base ISO of S Cinetone is different than when you're in like flexible ISO or Cine EI mode on the camera. So really just go on Google, type in what is the base ISO of my camera when I'm filming in Rec 709, when I'm filming in S-Log3, when I'm filming in S Cinetone. Just become an expert in your camera's base ISO settings, understand what it means, understand how to change your ISO, and go do some experimenting. Go look at what happens. Film the same clip at 4 different ISOs and then go try to color grade it, and you'll see immediately that it doesn't look good. The farther away you get from your base ISO, ISO, the less clean your image is going to get. So many people are buying new cameras, buying new lenses, buying new gear, trying all different things because their image doesn't look right. And if they just got this one thing right, they would be professionals. Your image would look so much cleaner if you just stayed at your base ISO. That rant is over. I do want to talk about a couple more things here. White balance. For me personally, I don't use auto white balance. I used to use it a lot, but I found that sometimes in the middle of a clip, the camera would change the white balance and it would be a nightmare to edit in post. So now what I do for weddings, which are really dynamic events, is I set my white balance myself by my eye. I have my wedding cinema LUT on my camera, which is what I use to edit weddings. So I kind of have an idea of what my final image is going to look like when I'm filming. And when I go into any new location at a wedding, whether it's the ceremony, the reception, or where we're doing portraits, I'll look at my monitor and I'll look and say, okay, does this look too warm? Does this look too cold? How do the skin tones look? And then I'll adjust my color temperature and I'll get it close. And then here's the thing, I don't touch it. As long as I'm at that location, I don't change it. This is gonna help a lot in post because you can always adjust the temperature, you can always adjust the white balance, and you should be adjusting the white balance in post-production as well. The important thing is here for white balance, you just want consistency and you just wanna get it in the ballpark of normal looking. You can adjust it and correct it and finalize it later in your editor, but the last thing you want is multiple white balances when you're filming in one location, especially for something like a wedding where you're in one place for maybe an hour or two and every clip is like a different white balance. It's gonna really lengthen out the time of your editing. It's gonna be really annoying in post. So set it manually. Again, you can go on Google and just like, how do I change the white balance on a Sony FX3? And it'll tell you. You can learn all these things really easily. You just need to learn what like the best practices are. And this is a good practice for white balance. Now, if you're in the studio, you're gonna use a gray card and you're gonna really make sure you nail it every single time. But for something like a wedding or for hobbyists or for a YouTube channel, really just getting it close is gonna go farther than you think. Lastly, I wanna talk about an artistic and fun one, aperture. This is one that everybody gets on. It's the little F number of when you buy a lens. Maybe it says f2.8 like the lens I'm using. There are some lenses that are much higher, like think about a probe lens. They're like f22. And you might be thinking like, I have no idea what that means, Pete, or I don't know what aperture is yet, so please explain. Every lens has these blades inside them, and if you look into your lens, you'll actually see as you change the f-stop of your lens, you'll see these blades start to close, and those blades are controlling the amount of light that is now going through the lens and hitting the sensor. Just like when you speed your shutter speed to a crazy high number like 1/2000, that's going to restrict how much light is hitting the sensor. Physically closing blades in your lens that block the light is actually also going to control what light hits your sensor as well. It's pretty obvious. So a really high f-stop like f20 or f22 means those blades are really closed off. There's not a lot of light coming in. A really low f-stop, or in lens terms a fast f-stop like 2.8, means those blades are really wide open and can look right down the barrel of the lens and a ton of light is just flooding into that lens. This is probably the best way to control the light that hits your sensor. Way above changing your frame rate, way above changing your shutter speed. Honestly, you should never change your frame rate or shutter speed to affect how much light is hitting your sensor. This should be your first or second method of darkening or brightening your image. If the image is a little dark, open up the lens. That means lowering the f-stop. If your image is too bright, close off the lens, raise your f-stop. This is going to simply adjust how much light is hitting your sensor without adjusting or messing up any of the other settings you have on your camera. Now there is a caveat to this, and you'll notice this immediately. The lower f-stop you use, the more bokeh or blur in the background you're going to have, and the shorter range of focus you're going to have. So an f2.8 means that the range of things that is in focus is going to be smaller compared to like an f15 or f20. You're gonna have a lot more in focus and less blur in the background. Now this can sometimes handcuff you or change how your image looks, but this can also be a great help. A lower f-stop like 2.8 is gonna create a really artistic look. You're gonna have a lot of beautiful bokeh and blur in the background, and really only your subject is gonna be really sharp and in frame. It can be harder to catch focus in this way, but things look really beautiful and creamy when you do that. And now a higher f-stop, things are gonna look a little bit more like they're all in focus, almost like you're maybe filming it on an iPhone. And this is really great for like the ceremony camera of a wedding. I'll turn the f-stop down to f10, 12, 13, 14 when I'm filming the ceremony of a wedding from a tripod, because I wanna make sure as much is in focus as possible. Granted, that will darken the image. I know that's kind of all over the place. Here are the things you need to know about aperture, also known as f-stop. A lower f-stop like 2.8 is gonna have more blur in the background, but it's gonna let a lot of light into your lens. So if you're in a dark room, a lower f-stop like 2.8 is gonna really help your image be brighter without changing your settings. A higher f-stop is going to darken your image. It's going to restrict the light coming into your camera, but more is going to be in focus. So if you're filming an event or something where you want like the background a little bit more in focus and less blurry, raise your f-stop, but know that it's going to darken your image. Here's the bonus, and this honestly should be another part of this video, not just a bonus. ND filters are a fourth way that you can change the light that is coming into your camera. You've got your frame rate, your shutter speed, your aperture, and then you've got ND filters. There's a bunch of different kinds. There are sensor ND filters, there are built-in ND filters, there are ND filters that you put in a matte box, and there are variable ones that can change, and there are static ND filters. And basically what they are is like darkened glass that is also restricting how much light comes into your camera. So this is a fourth way, and honestly for me, a primary way to lower the amount of light coming into your camera. So you can go outside and film something on a wide open lens like f2.8 at 12,800, and if you have a powerful enough ND filter, everything will look fine because you're actually restricting the light coming into the camera via this darkened piece of glass on the end of your lens. When I'm filming a portrait session for a wedding outside, it's usually really bright, the sun's out. I don't want to change my f-stop to something really high like f15, especially for a portrait session where I want that dreamy, magical, artistic look. I want my lens to be at f2.8 for that. But naturally, like we said before, the lower the f-stop, the more light is going to come into my camera, so I'm probably going to end up overexposing. An ND filter will allow me to run my lens at f2.8, and then I can just adjust my ND filter to darken my image alone. The only downside of ND filters is the lower quality ones will sometimes distort the image, you'll get vignetting, or sometimes, you know, it's another layer of glass between your sensor and the outside world. You can smudge, scratch, or damage it as well. I used to not use ND filters, and now I have one for every lens, every camera body that I own. I take them everywhere I go. Honestly, on this camera that I kind of use for general fun and life and YouTube stuff, it doesn't come off the lens. It stays on that camera forever. Okay, I know that was a lot of stuff. I know that maybe feels overwhelming, a lot of concepts, a lot of just kind of like dipping your toes in some of the waters of these settings. You should have a good foundation to now go on Google, now go on YouTube and start searching around and be like, okay, this is my camera. I need to know my base ISOs. I need to know how to change my white balance. I need to know the f-stop of my lens and how to control that from the camera and how to control that from the actual lens. You should have a bunch of ideas on how you can go become a master of these settings. And settings are important to understand because when you're filming a wedding or you're on the job, you don't want to be fumbling around trying to figure out what something is, how it works, or how to change it. If you're on the job and someone says, hey, we need this white balance set to 3000, you need to just be like, you got it. And you need to be able to just go in and change your white balance. The last thing you want to do is take out your phone and Google how to change white balance on Sony FX3 when you're on set or when the wedding ceremony is happening. You know, you need to know these things ahead of time so that when you have a job, when you're working, you come off as a professional, you do a good job, and you have good footage. All the footage in this video was edited with my wedding cinema LUT. I use that for every wedding I film, and I honestly also use it for a lot of other projects as well. And if you want that LUT, the link is in the description of this video, so feel free to go check that out. Otherwise, you can support me for free by liking this video, subscribing to my channel. I'm super new on YouTube, so I'm still just figuring things out, and I appreciate everyone commenting and just being super nice here. This is a great platform, and I'm having a blast making these videos. I hope this helped you, and I'll see you in the next video.
Have you ever made a video and the audio just didn't quite sound right? Maybe your voiceover sounded thin, quiet, or not balanced? Once you understand it, it will totally change the sound and feel of narrations, dialogue, and almost any of the audio in your videos. Now, there are a lot of different ways to use a compressor, a lot of different controls on a compressor, and I'm going to break this down as simply as possible in a short amount of time so that you can get a quick understanding of what a compressor does, how to use one, and how to apply it to a real-world scenario in a video. So before we get started, please like this video, subscribe to my channel. It helps me grow a lot, and I love just giving away free tutorials and knowledge here on YouTube. A compressor is like a volume knob that turns down the loudest parts of your audio. It can be very useful for dialogue. It can be very useful to create full-bodied narration, and it can also be used to give more character to the quiet parts of audio while not blowing people's eardrums out with the loud parts. In another way of saying it, a compressor does exactly what the name says it does. It compresses the dynamic range of your audio. Loud parts get quieter, quiet parts get louder. Again, a compressor evens out the volume, it keeps the vocals present, and it prevents the peaks of your audio signal from distorting, from being too loud. Okay, so there are a bunch of settings on a compressor that you need to at least have a basic understanding of what they do and how they work so that you can properly dial in compression. First is the threshold. Think of the threshold as where your compressor starts to work. You're going to set this line on your audio bar, the threshold, and any audio that passes over that gets squished, quieted down. The ratio, another really important setting in a compressor, is how hard the compressor will work to quiet down that audio. So for example, if your ratio is set to 4:1, that means that for every 4 decibels over the threshold, the compressor will only allow 1 decibel through. So that's pretty hard compression. That means that your audio signal is actually being reduced by 3 decibels. If your ratio is set 10:1, that means for every 10 decibels over the threshold, the compressor is only going to allow 1 decibel through. It's going to automatically quiet down that signal so much, 9 decibels worth of noise is being reduced to only allow 1 decibel through. Then you have attack and release. Attack is how fast the compressor kicks in. Release is how slow the compressor lets go of quieting down that audio. They can have different effects. Feel free to experiment. You don't really have to change those too much for dialogue. So right now, with just a threshold and a ratio, the end product you have is just a quieter signal. All you've done is you've quieted things down that have exceeded your threshold. Picture it like this. Here's your original audio signal. You then compressed your audio signal with a threshold and ratio. So your whole audio signal used to be like this, and now it looks like this. So it's a little bit quieter actually. The makeup gain then takes your remaining audio signal and pushes it back up to the top. So you want to make sure that your final peaks of audio are still acceptable and within the proper range for like broadcast and for a polished video. But makeup gain is important because again, with just a threshold and a ratio, you're actually just quieting things down. Then you use the makeup gain to push everything back up. And here's one more really important thing about makeup gain. Again, I'm just using my hands for this. Here's the low part of your audio wave. Here's the high part of your audio wave. We compress it down and we make it back up. Look what's happening to the low signal. Here it is again. We compress it down and we raise it back up with the makeup gain. The low end of the signal is actually being raised when you use makeup gain. And this is important because dialogue, voiceovers, narrations, even singing, there are very nuanced tones in those valleys of your audio wave. And by bringing that up with makeup gain, you're actually going to bring those forward. Some of the breathiness, some of the rich, full-bodied vocal actually dwells in the bottom of your audio range. So by compressing things down, and then using makeup gain to bring it back up, your actual final audio level is probably going to be around the same, but you're pulling up the nuanced character and tone that is in the bottom of your audio wave without overdriving your peaks. Okay, so you're in your video editor and you want to use a compressor on some audio that you have. How do you do that? Some people will say to use a compressor before EQ or after EQ. I personally don't care. Use it wherever works best and ends with the right product for you. Typically, I wouldn't compress a background track of music or anything like that. I would put it on vocals, unless you're producing like a song and you're compressing instruments. For video editing alone, I typically wouldn't put a compressor onto sound effects, backing tracks, anything like that. I would use it on dialogue, narration, voiceovers, things of that nature. Dialing in your settings is going to be important. The threshold has to be set manually to the audio peak of your audio file. So again, we said this earlier, if your audio file was recorded at a lower gain and your signal's low, you might have to boost that gain up before compressing it, or really lower your threshold to come down and meet that gain level. So threshold is dependent on the signal of audio. Ratio for a very gentle compression, 2:1, 3:1. Once you go over 2:1 or 3:1 as a ratio, you're gonna start to have a noticeable compression. If you crank compression up to 10:1, you'll instantly hear the effect that it has, and it has this almost choking effect on the dynamics of the audio. So you don't really ever wanna do that. I would recommend for just starting out, if you've ever used a compressor before and you just want some of the basic benefits of using one, to start at a ratio of 2 or 3:1. Don't touch the attack and release on your compressor. They're probably set in a really default, basic, natural feeling way. And with your makeup gain, I typically will push back in equal to my ratio. So if my ratio is set 3:1 or 4:1, I would then push back in 3 decibels or 4 decibels with my makeup gain. Here's an example of audio without some compression, so you can hear what just a natural, this is what the mic is hearing. And now here's an example of me speaking with some compression dialed in on this microphone. And now here's an example of me speaking with the compressor cranked all the way up. It's choking out my signal. You can hear the difference this is making. When you overcompress things, it can take the life out of your audio. It kind of feels like it has no room to breathe. It doesn't feel natural. It sounds almost too like it's on the radio or something like that. When something's not compressed enough, you might not hear all the things in the lower end of the audio signal, or the top end of the audio signal might be peaking, distorting. What you can do to learn this quickly is to record a simple voiceover dialogue, drop it into your video editor, and just start to mess around with the compressors. Listen to how it changes the tone of your voice and how it changes the feel of your video. I've said this before, audio is really, really important in videos. People will watch bad video, but they won't listen to bad audio. And this is a really, really easy way to put a professional touch to the audio in your videos. But if you get through this whole video and you're like, Pete, I just can't figure this out, or I'm still a little confused about this and I'm not ready to implement using compression in my audio editing, I do sell compression presets on my website. You can go at the link in the description of this video to check them out. They have everything dialed in for voiceover right away. The only thing you need to change on them is the threshold. Again, because the threshold is dependent on the audio signal of your recorded audio. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it gave you some insight into how compression works in audio and how you can use it in video production to create better, more rich dialogue and voiceovers for your video. Again, if you haven't yet, like and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it a lot. I hope this video helped you, and I'll see you on the next one. Here's exactly how I would land my first client as a new videographer even if I had no portfolio, in under 10 minutes. It's honestly the age-old question of anybody who's starting any type of business in the world. How do I get people to pay me for doing this? There are a couple factors that play into this that really apply to any business, especially service-based industries, that will help you land your first client. And these are things that simply have just worked for me. One quick success story, the very first client that ever responded to a cold email that I sent, I'm actually still in business with them. I've been in business with them for years now, and I've grown my business as a result of that contract that all started from one cold email out of like 300 cold emails that I sent. They're friends of mine now. I've learned a lot from them in terms of financial investing and retirement planning, and then I provide a service for them too. I even remember what they said back. It was something like, okay, we'll bite. Would you like to meet with us? And that led to an About Us video for their website. That then led to an Instagram package for 10 Reels, which then led to a monthly retainer, which is still going today. So I tell you that story because yes, it's great for me and my business, but it is possible and it's actually not that hard to get your first client and then even turn those clients into recurring clients through retainer packages or other types of business as well. So you're in the right place. You're probably doing the right thing already. You might just need a couple details to fine tune how you're looking for clients and where you're expecting to find them, how you're communicating with them, things of that nature. But I guarantee you can get your first client really easily if you just watch the rest of this video. Okay, so number one is to be professional enough to be trusted. You don't need a top-level cinema camera. Honestly, if you have like a mirrorless camera and a microphone, even something like this, you're probably ready to go. Most clients aren't going to ask what kind of camera you're using or what kind of movies your camera has made in big picture. What they really want to know is, can you provide what they need at an acceptable quality? Can you scratch that itch that they can't scratch themselves? That's where, as a service-based industry like a videographer, you come in with expertise, knowledge, gear, pre-production, post-production, all these things that the average business owner, average person doesn't know how to do, doesn't have time to do. And you say, if you exchange this amount of dollars, I will give you this service. That's essentially being an entrepreneur. So you don't need the best gear in the world. Again, clients probably don't even know the names of the cameras or lenses or microphones that you're using. They want to see previous work. They want to see success. They want to see solutions to problems. And again, if you just have a mirrorless camera, even an iPhone, you could probably get business filming things if you know how to talk to clients, if you know what you're doing, or if you know how to work your gear. So don't worry too much about the exact gear you have. Worry about coming across as a professional, somebody who knows what they're talking about. You're comfortable talking to clients, and you can provide what they're looking for and need. And the second one, this is a really important one, but you can do it at home today. You can start right after this video is over, and that is to become an expert in the gear that you do have. So maybe you don't have the best camera out there. I don't have the best camera out there, but you can become an expert in what you do have. And all you have to do to accomplish that is go on YouTube, go on Google, start watching tutorials, start to understand, and this is a really important thing, start to understand concepts around things. So rather than just learning about like, okay, whose settings am I going to copy, or whose presets can I just buy and drop into my audio editor to make things sound great, start to learn conceptually how framing works, how lighting works, how exposure works. That's what I call the cinematic trinity. If you learn those three things, framing, lighting, exposure, you'll be golden with your equipment. You'll know how to use it. You'll know how to set up beautiful shots. You'll never overexpose, underexpose, things like that. So before you go and show up at a client, make sure you know how to use your equipment, but also be an expert in it. Don't just be somebody who got a camera, I learned how to turn it on, and I copied someone's settings off YouTube. Actually go and take even just an hour tonight and type in how to master exposure for videography, how to master framing for videography. Look at some of the videos on my channel that cover some of these things. I know it's a new channel, so it's missing some of that stuff right now, but becoming an expert in your gear is A, going to produce better videos, and B, when you show up to shoot your first video, they're going to see that you're an expert, and they're going to notice that you're not fumbling around with equipment, you're not unsure, you're confident, you're happy, you're smiling, you're not worried or like sweating bullets or anything like that, because you know exactly what you're doing. And a great way to practice that is to just do a trial shoot, whether that be with friends or with yourself. You could set up a camera, light, and a microphone just like I'm doing and practice filming things to see what works and see what doesn't work. If you have a friend with a small business, or you know somebody who owns a gym or is a personal trainer, or it really could be any business at all, you could even just go to them and say, hey, I just started my video marketing business and I'm looking to build my portfolio. Would I be able to do a free video for you in exchange for a referral? And this brings us into talking about pricing for your first client. Nobody wants to scare away a client with price ever. I still feel that today after being in business for 6 years. And sure, maybe charging $100, $200, $300 will be nice just to get some money in your pockets, but sometimes you also just have to say, I'm going to do this for free. I'm going to do this for a friend just to get the portfolio content, because that portfolio content is then what you are going to attach to your cold emails when you send them to local clients who need your service. Your cold emails will be a lot more effective if you attach a video that says, here's exactly what your video is going to look like. And here's a really easy example. Say you're a videographer and you're looking to land your first client. I would go on Google Maps, look for small businesses within 1 mile of my house. I'd go check out their websites. Any of them that doesn't have an About Us video that is basically highlighting the business, how they came to be, who their owner is, what their passion is, what they do. Any small business within 1 mile of me that does not have one of those videos, I'm calling, walking in, or emailing, and I would say, hey, I noticed you don't have an About Us video. I'm a new video marketer. I'm actually less than 1 mile away from you. Would you mind if I shot over and filmed one for you completely free of charge? I would love to provide that for you in exchange for a referral to somebody else you might know who needs one. Chances are they're going to say yes. Everybody wants something free. But if you could attach a previous About Us video that you made to that email and say, here's what your video is going to look like, that will go a lot farther than just a blank cold email. So sometimes you're going to have to do some free work. I still do free work occasionally, even after being in business for 6 years, whether it be for a friend just to help them out or to step into a new niche that I'm trying to explore. And you don't have to feel ready to start. I still don't feel ready for things. I have a new retainer client that I just booked, and my first thought was, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this. Even though I've been shooting videos for 6 years, shoot all kinds of weddings, commercial, short films, all those things, I still get that feeling of I'm not ready for this. You just need to be good enough. And over time, you'll build that confidence, and you'll even be able to speak to your own insecurity and say, I know I feel like I'm not ready, but if I just look at my past work, if I just look at the hurdles that I've jumped over to get to where I'm at today, I can do this. Like, that goes a really long way as well. You just need to be good enough to deliver that first project, and it's not going to be your best work. Just get that in your head now. Your first project is not going to be your best work. I look back on my first projects and I want to close my computer and retire because they're so bad. That's to be expected though. Anytime you try something new, you start something new, you're going to be worse when you first start out versus 5, 6, 10, 15 years later. I can tell you from experience, the things that I was worried about in my first year are now pieces of cake to me in my 6th year. But there are still things right now that worry me, that freak me out, that stress me out, that I'm sure in 5 years I'll be like, why was I so worried about those things? So understand that every part of the stage of being an entrepreneur, owning a business, being a video marketer, looking for your first client, every part of that journey is going to come with moments of insecurity, moments where you feel like you're not ready, moments where you think you're in shoes that are too big for you. You just need to be good enough to deliver the project to the client. So don't get ahead of yourself. Don't worry too much about the gear that you have or that there's somebody out there that's better than you. There's always going to be somebody out there that's better than you. You just need to be good enough to deliver the project for your client. Also, in that starting range, when you're not getting clients, you don't have lead generation or anything like that, it can be really hard to close that first sale. Sometimes you can do things that are unscalable just to get that client. What do I mean by that? I mean sending a 30-second video to all those small businesses in the area instead of an email, instead of walking in or calling them, actually making a little video that says, hey, my name's Pete. I live right around the corner from you, and I just wanted to introduce myself. I know you're closed today, so I decided to make a video, send it over to you guys. This is what I do. Here's what I make. I'd love to do one for you for free. You can't do that for every client, but sending somebody a 30-second personalized introduction video might help you land that first sale, that first project, whatever it might be. Or like I said, offering a free shoot just to get content to build your portfolio, that's unscalable. You can't shoot free videos as a business owner, but early on, or if you're exploring a new niche, shooting something for free is a great way to see how hard it is to film that type of content, to see if you're capable of it, see if you even like it, see if it's marketable, things like that. And one other thing that you can do to help land your first client is to just network. I say this a lot, people won't know what you do or how good you are at it if you don't post, talk about it, tell people about it, ask people about what they need, things like that. So make sure your family knows what you do, make sure your closest friends know what you do, make sure the people you work out with or train with or go shopping with or play sports with, bring it up in casual conversation, ask them for advice. Hey, I just started a video marketing agency. I know you own a business. Do you have any advice for somebody who's just starting a new business? Just saying something like that. Yes, you'll get some advice from them, but you're also now planting seeds in their heads like, hey, this guy has a video marketing business. So networking is something that I hate because I don't really like talking to people I don't know, but it is something that goes miles and miles farther, even than like paid ads sometimes or viral videos sometimes. Networking should be a lifestyle thing that you do. You're always looking to talk to people about what you do, talking to people about what they do, and just building relationships in a genuine and authentic way, not just always working to the sale, but actually just get to know people, be a friendly human being, be good at what you do, be looking to help people, to meet people halfway. That will go a long way in growing your business over time, and it'll also go a long way in developing your character as a business owner and a person over time as well, which is just as important, to be a man, woman of character, upstanding in your community, society, giving back when you can, things like that. So I know that's a lot. I promise you, if you practice those things, start sending 50, 60, 70 cold emails in a day, reach out to local local people. Don't worry too much about your gear. Network as much as possible. Give away a free video if you have to. You will land a client. There is somebody in your town right now that needs a video that can't afford it, and they're just waiting for someone like you to email them or to stop in or to give them a call and give them that offer. I promise you, there is somebody in your town waiting for you right now. And once you've delivered that first project, the one after becomes easier, and the one after that becomes even easier. And over time, you'll get better at talking to people about what you do, offering your services to people who need it, pricing things right, developing lead generation tactics that actually have people coming to you instead of you coming to them. That stuff will come. You just need to get over that first hurdle, and honestly, probably the hardest hurdle of landing your first client. But I promise you, if you apply the things in this video, you will land your first client with no problem. Thank you for watching this video. I really hope it helped you. Please do me a favor and just hit the like button, subscribe to my channel if this helped you at all. Share it with somebody else who's looking to land their first lead as well. It'll go a long way. I will see you in the next video.